She's Katie Montgomery. He's Justin Joseph. These best friends are serving subpoenas to bad advice weekly with Wrong Way Forward. Now, here's Katie and Justin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Montgomery, and welcome to Wrong Way Forward, where we roast the worst advice. And sometimes we try to give you some good advice, too. I'm here with my best friend, Justin Joseph, and co-host. But today, we are so excited to have Mary McGreevy join us. And Mary McGreevy is the creator and host of a popular social media site called Tips from Dead People. It has more than 450,000 followers. She holds an undergraduate degree from Notre Dame University and a Master's of Public Affairs and Public Policy from La Follette School of Public Affairs at UW-Madison. However, as Tips from Dead People has taught her, it's the little things that are the big things. So Mary would prefer that you know that she is punctual to a fault. And Justin and I can attest to that. She was perfectly on time. She's obsessed with tap dancing and has never had a cup of coffee in her entire life. She lives in St. Paul, Minnesota with her husband, Ernest, and their dog, Mr. Bean. And we are so excited to have Mary, who has been reading obituaries since she was a little girl. And so just to get started, Mary, how about you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became to love obituaries and the lessons you've taken from them.
And how I found my community of fellow nerds online.
We're happy to join that community.
I know, of course. It's the best group. Well, let's see. I'm from Sioux Falls, South Dakota originally. And my mom, when I was a middle schooler, was the obituaries writer / editor for my hometown paper briefly. It wasn't a great job, so it was a short job. But I think it was the right age for me, and I started paying attention. And I started this hobby of reading obituaries, which of course I had no idea it would turn into a lifelong hobby or anything else, of course. But I think at that age, I was just reading because it was interesting to me. I was kind of, and still am, sort of a natural gossip and a curious person. And so I would look and see, well, if there's two husbands, why is the second one not mentioned? Or what does the phrase succumb to your demons mean? Like, I wouldn't have known what that meant as a child. And then I moved as an adult to, 5 or 6 different cities, and I would subscribe to the print paper and cut out the obituaries that said something different or something unusual with no intention or purpose behind it whatsoever, just shoved them in a folder. And then a few years ago, I was in the middle of a big work project, like a work project, and it was stressful. And I thought to myself, like, I don't have a creative outlet. I don't sing. I don't cook. I mean, yes, there's tap dancing, but hard to bring tap dancing along on vacation or sit around a campfire and tap dance. So I thought, I'm going to dig that folder out and see if it's still interesting to me. And if so, I wonder if there'd be any other people interested in it. So I did. And I do think it was really interesting. And I have 3 daughters in their 20s. And I asked them at the time, what platform do you think would be fun for this? And of course, if a cringe could be audible, that's the response I got. Now, of course, they're my biggest fans, but it was challenging at first. So I just started reading excerpts, saying what they meant to me. And then slowly but surely, people would start to send me good ones too by DM. And then one very strange video caught this algorithmic breeze, and I went to bed and woke up and it had 1 million views and thousands of comments. And I think after that, I started getting put on faster highways. I still don't quite understand all the social media stuff, but it just sort of kept growing and growing. And then people would start to ask me to give speeches. So, but the last thing I'll say about this is that I think this whole hobby started out of curiosity about life. But I really think what is so meaningful to me is that it turned into a mirror for me to look at my own choices and my own life and the things that people always told me mattered in life, like degrees and jobs and esteem and achievements and all that kind of stuff. I would read obituaries where a person was traditionally accomplished, but it didn't come off that they were adored. Or conversely, I would read obituaries where you might charitably call them a hot mess, and yet this is the person that you want to talk to or have a drink with, and it was just like suffused or oozing with love. So it really, for me, an anxious sort of competitive person who never really found the professional lane that everybody said you'd find if you follow your passion. It was a great relief to see that, oh, there are different things that matter here. Because by the end of life, what is it? Can we boil it down to the essence? So while it started off, I think, just kind of superficial, people love stories, it has turned into something so much more meaningful for me, and I hope for other people. So it's a long background.
And so, Mary, what makes a good obituary? I mean, you've spent so much time with them. What's the one takeaway you have for people who may be considering this? What makes a good obituary, and should people be thinking about their own obituary?
Both awesome questions. I think for me, it's different for everybody. Some people don't care about the quality of an obituary. It's just like a task to do in the hubbub of after someone dies, and I totally get that. But for me, if you're in the middle of the night, you're missing your person so much, and you want to somehow reclaim the feeling of being with them, a good obituary can make you feel, once again, that you're with them. And I think that has to do with authenticity. I know that's kind of like an overused word, but the good, the bad in between. I love it when an obituary gets really minute in its attention to detail, the things that they loved, the things that they hated, the pranks, the habits, the hobbies, or whatever. That, to me, elevates to what matters the most. Whereas the ones that just, feel like dumb LinkedIn or resume or whatever, I don't think people are going to go back to that for a feeling of anything. Now at this point, I'm getting sent like dozens and dozens of obituaries a week. And when I try to read and respond to every single one, but when I'm thinking about what I want to share online, I think it's got to be someone who's non-famous, because we love our famous people, but they get a lot of attention. Right. And it gets to the heart of the person, good, bad, and in between. So like, to the point of your podcast, there's a lot of like cautionary tales inside obituaries. And when I share those, I'm bracing for people to get mad. There's so much etiquette around death and so forth. And it's always the opposite. It's like cathartic for people to hear the truth in a story. And should people be thinking about their own? I think so. I think it's kind of fun. Like, personally, I have just a note on my notes app that says she loved and she hated. And I feel like if I die tomorrow, people will have that list and they can run with it. But of course, I love a funny obituary. That's amazing. But there's also ones that are bittersweet and poignant and even savage that hold a lot of truth too. So I guess I like the most when something doesn't feel templated.
Yeah. We're talking today to Mary McGreevy, who's the host of the popular social media channel Tips from Dead People. Mary has more than 450,000 followers. Before we get too far along, Mary, where can people find you on Insta, on your other channels? And so that if they are interested, they can go to you now.
I'm on all the platforms now. I started on TikTok, and that's when TikTok was growing. And then all the stupid political stuff happened with TikTok, and then it just kind of stalled. I don't quite know what's happening there. So at that point, I was like, well, just to be safe. So I started an Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and then I'm playing around with writing. So I started a Substack too. So all of those places. I would say Instagram is probably the most active one right now.
Okay. And what's your handle on Instagram?
Tips from Dead People on all of them. Weird. Nobody else wanted that handle.
Well, just in case somebody's listening, is like, I want to go see what this is about. And for people who don't know, basically what Mary does is she goes through obituaries and she takes takeaways from them. Is that a fair statement?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. I think when I'm reading through the submissions, because pretty much they're all submissions at this point, I think, would this have helped me at some point in my life? If so, it's worthy of sharing. Is it just really funny or really sad or well written? That's another criteria, I guess. But I feel like if it would help me to think again about what matters and what doesn't matter, then it might help someone else. That's usually the main filter that I have. And I try to keep the videos around 3 minutes. So I do like trim things. I don't change what people have written, but sometimes I'll just trim the obituary down.
You know, Mary, I had two parents who died unexpectedly. And so I wrote, along with my sister, both of their obituaries. And then really, I'm Catholic. And so in their funeral masses, even tried to take some liberty with the prayers of the faithful, but got in trouble with the priest. And
What do you mean, Katie? What do
edited
you
it.
mean?
Well, I just, I wanted to do some prayers of the faithful that were a little cheeky or that kind of brought out my parents. There was one that was a little political and they were edited back. But that led me to what you were talking about as kind of like the etiquette of death. And when we're kind of talking about the wrong way forward, a lot of times we talk about etiquette. Like, what etiquette rules are we just Mary, should we just put to the wayside when it comes to death and grieving?
I think, boy, there's little things to answer to that question, and there's big philosophical things too. Like, I mean, big philosophical questions. I think there should be compassionate choice in every single state, and I think we should broaden the parameters for what people can use. But on a micro level, I had the same experience. My mom died in November, and it was a Catholic mass as well, and the priest was amazing. He was great, but he did say, is it fair to say that she was in a lover's quarrel with the church for her adult life? And I was like, that is exactly fair to say, for sure. So, and we had the restrictions of whoever's they didn't really want people to give remarks, but if someone was going to do it, it had to be this small and so forth. But I think on a micro level, one thing that is fairly freeing is this etiquette around language. So we have passed away, we have loved ones, we have memorials, we have tributes. I try to stay away from all of those and just be really blunt about your dead. It's still okay to make fun of your dead person.
Yes.
They died, they didn't pass away. This is just a personal preference of mine, but I feel like if we can inject some of the earthiness and even humor, like the Irish do, for example, back into this process, people wouldn't be so scared of authentic obituaries. Like, why would we not share about the addiction? Why would we not share about all the different spouses and so on? So I really believe that it's refreshing to not use some of those euphemisms around death. So yeah, that's good. And that example is on my mind because I'm in the middle of writing a book. And
that's great.
As you go back and forth with editors and so forth, I think the natural instinct for people when they think about anything around death is to tiptoe and to be really tender and not to shock people's sensibilities. But I am taking that language out and trying to insert blunter language in if I can.
And again, we're talking today with Mary McGreevy, host of Tips from Dead People. You can find her on Instagram and on various social media channels. Mary, when we'll come back, let's ask you about some of your favorite obituaries that you can remember, and we'll talk about that on the other side. We'll be right back with Wrong Way Forward.
You've been listening to Wrong Way Forward, where bad advice goes to die and then gets resurrected just so we can roast it again.
If you're enjoying the chaos, hit like and subscribe and come back every Thursday for new episodes.
Have a new topic or some disastrously bad advice you want to dissect? Email wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Include your contact info.
Now back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katie and Justin podcast.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. We are talking to Mary McGreevy, who is host of the popular social media channel Tips from Dead People. She has more than 450,000 followers. It sounds like she's an author in making, talking about some of her best takeaways from obituaries. And Mary, talk to us about some of your most memorable obituaries that you have highlighted in your on your various channels.
One of my favorites, and she's going to be the book that I'm in the middle of writing is going to have 50 obituaries, and she's number one, is a woman named Trish. And by any normal metric, she was a job hopper, maybe didn't have a great work ethic, but it was clear from the obituary that she was a natural, intuitive parent and funny and so forth. But the last two paragraphs of her obituary were very simple. Here's what Trish loved. And it's a list of about 25, 30 things. And they're so small. It's Skittles, square shaped bullet points, the long and lean trouser from the Gap, Capri candles. It's like that level of all of them, micro. And then the next paragraph is, here's what Trish hated. Cold butter, Caillou, the PBS cartoon guy, people who were phony. So when I give talks to people and so forth, I always use that example as, if you think about the metrics that we're all told matter, which is like achievements and honors and awards, and that's what fills up a lot of paid space in obituaries. This to me is so much better, because if the metric that matters to me, which is like, who would you rather have dinner with? Who would you rather have a drink with? Someone who's talking about KPIs and month over month revenue, or Trish, and you could go down deep with cold butter and Skittles for 20 minutes. To me, that's success. That is success. And I always feel like when I'm telling people that the little things in life are really the big things, as I'm saying it, I cringe because of the clichéness of it. But she's a good example in the flesh, so to speak, of what that would look like and why that's actually the truth.
So I love that you're talking about, the typical obituary is like a list of accomplishments and what we kind of as a culture, find important, certain milestones. If you were writing your own, would you just say, to hell with the education, to hell with the career, and instead, like you said, just do a love and hate list? Or would you mention, those kind of highlights?
If I were writing my own, I would not include the education or I have kind of a zigzaggy job history myself. So it's like, ugh, whatever. I don't begrudge people that. Like I read a lot of obituaries with that progress, that sort of straight line progress narrative in it. It isn't that I begrudge people that experience or how proud they are of it or how proud their family is of it. But if that's what defines someone, it feels kind of empty to me. So personally, I don't care. And I think my kids have heard enough of my videos that they get it. They will get that. But it's not that I would say, listen to me and don't do any of that, because there's a lot of tenderness in that too. But I personally just don't care. It doesn't I don't get to know someone that way.
Yeah. And I love that you're saying, like, what really matters. And I do think if you're fortunate enough to be able to be with someone during the dying process, right, where they can, plan their funeral, talk about their obituary, is, for example, we know Trish didn't like cold butter, but it would be great if Trish said, this is what really mattered to me, and you know what you're kind of bringing to mind is, I don't know if you ever watched 6 Feet Under, but I think about that very last episode where, like, Claire sees her life, kind of and it's not, like you said, the accomplishments, it's the feeling, right? And so I think I might start a notes section of things I love and hate too, but what mattered. And I think if we ask the average person, they would probably say family, love, relationships. But how do you articulate that, right? Or how do you show that? I think that's really interesting.
It's what you choose to say, I think. I haven't seen 6 Feet Under. That's like a gap in my educational history. I think I should watch that. But I even remember in college reading Tolstoy's The Death of Ivan Ilyich, which is the classic deathbed. I am alone on my deathbed because I didn't tend to my relationships. I only worked. And then if you look at a variety of TED Talks and things like that, the top 5 regrets of the dying, it's all of that theme. I did too much of this. I listened too much to what society was saying, and I didn't do enough of what my heart told me. I read an obituary recently for a woman from Berkeley who, it was so poetic and people really resonated with it, but it was basically like, too late, I started listening to that little voice that was inside me from a kid that was just suppressed. Too late, but I did it. I started listening to her. And after that, all these great things happened. And I think maybe even especially for women of a certain age, it was like, she said what I'm feeling. She articulated this. And it's like, she's articulating regret about what she was doing along the way. And I feel like that's just so helpful and great and special and unique. So
Do you often get asked to write someone's obituary? Like, do you get solicited for that?
I never have. I mean, actually, so I shouldn't say never. I have in DMs. People will ask, do you help write? I'm so silly on social media. Like, I haven't really figured out monetization or anything like that. So I suppose I should at some point set up a, hey, book 20 minutes with me or something. But I have never done that. So the first full obituary I wrote was last November for my mom.
And how was that process for you? I mean, because now I would think you'd be in your head because this is kind of who you are.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's got to be perfect. I think it went great. I do think that I come from a little bit more traditional family. They're all readers and bookish and nerdy and progressive and that, but it's like it's more mainstream. So I feel like I stretched the form to the point of people still feeling comfortable, but also it felt kind of original. I did the love and the hate paragraphs, and people, that is the one thing people kept coming up and asking me about. So I think it's like tried and true now for me in my head. So it's like a realization that not everybody's going to want David Sedaris type of obituary. I love those kinds of things, but I understand that people are in an environment and everyone wants to be happy and they don't. It's so hard to step out of that mindset that to be funny or brusque around death is disrespectful. And sometimes you just can't get there in the days after a death. But I feel pretty good about it. I do.
So Mary, what's going to happen with the death of the newspaper? I mean, I know we have like legacy.com, but what's going to be the future? What's going to be the future of obituaries? And I don't know how old you are, but Justin and I are both in our 50s. Excuse me, I have my sister's dog here. But when I think about the future and like what is going to be the future of obituaries, what is that going to look like? What if you had to anticipate? What do you see?
Oh my gosh, we could talk about this for an hour. I know more about the business side of obituaries than a person should. So obituaries have gone back to the Roman times. It's only with the advent of the printing press post-Civil War that it became a feature of your regular newspapers. And at first it was just for notables in the community who died. And then it got to the point where it became sort of like a classified ad. You're paying to sell your lawnmower. And then over here in the same department, you're going to pay for the obituary. And that's where it still sits in the majority of newspapers. It is a profit center, and they are really reluctant to change the model, and thereby, in my opinion, sealing their fate in the same way that Craigslist took away classified ads from newspapers, and now Facebook Marketplace and everything else made paid ads for your lawnmower irrelevant. I believe that unless they change course, the exact same thing will happen to newspapers, because Legacy started its business as the back end obituary provider for the Chicago Tribune. And then because it was a good business model, they started gobbling up newspapers to the point where they ended up with like 90% of the newspapers in the country. They are the back end repository of all the obits for that paper. Legacy even is pivoting to try to get funeral homes to use their service, and now they don't advertise it for $150. You can go on and personally put something on Legacy. They didn't ever advertise that before because it was shooting their newspaper partnerships in the foot. So the landscape has completely changed. There are startups out there like Epilogue and Everloved and Keeper, where you just go on and you create a free memorial, kind of like the Knot did change things for weddings. So I feel like right now, in the heat of the moment, people just put it on the funeral or the cremation home site because they get the sticker shock. It's going to be $1,200 for a day to put it in your newspaper. So I feel like that's kind of where it's going.
That's crazy.
Pardon?
That's what obituaries cost?
Crazy. My mother-in-law's obituary was $1,200 for one day in the Dallas.
Yeah, and particularly if you need to be in more than one newspaper, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Mine would be Justin hated the $1,200 obituary.
I know, exactly. And it's like a template that you're never going to see again.
Yeah.
There are some exceptions. For example, there's a community newspaper in Berkeley called the Berkeley Side, and they made a choice to have all of their obituaries for free. And you look at the obituaries on their site, it is beyond. It's colorful language, it's long stories. It is a true reflection of the community. In the newspaper, the old newspaper model, if you were to look at, say, Detroit, 1975, here's the obituary section, it would not reflect the composition of the community because of all these equity issues around finances and literacy. There's a huge equity issue in obituaries. But when a newspaper decides to make this free, it changes the game completely. I emailed the editor of the paper at the Berkeley Side just to ask, when you decided to do this, did engagement go up? Did it go down? And he said it went way up. Wow. So like if a publisher were to talk to me, I would say, if it's not already too late, pivot to this. I know it's so hard to give up a profit center, but it's going to shrink anyway, where you are still the center of history and truth of your community, but it's seeping out and going away from them. I'm a diehard newspaper subscriber, so I say this kind of with sadness, but it is what it is.
Well, Mary, it's been such a privilege to have you on. We can talk all night about this. I know. Tell us when your book is launching. We'll have you back when your book launches. How's that going?
I'm a first-time writer. Sure. I think real writers probably look at people like me with a large social media following, like, why did they get a book deal? They're not even a writer. And I 100% agree with them. I'm not a writer. But it's been really fun. So the book is going to be 50 of some of my favorites that I've shared over the last couple of years, and where the family has agreed to have them in the book. And then I say about 300 words of commentary for each obituary. Kind of like how I talk online, but just more literate. What?
When are you launching? Do you know yet? Or when the book's going to be released?
August of 2027. But it's going to be done and written by the end of July of 2026, because I didn't know this about publishing. They start marketing and selling a full year in advance.
Well, we wish you the success of like a Chicken Soup for the Soul franchise. I hope you get 10 books.
I would love that. I used to make fun of that, but now I'm like, genius. Yeah. I would love that.
Well, thank you again for joining us.
Yes. And just a few takeaways. I think, be real. It's not about the accomplishment. Have people feel, and continue to think about your own obituary and those that you love. And let's take kind of this, shame or embarrassment or discomfort, around, and let's be honest in our obituaries. Let's say what we love and we hate. I'm going to start my list today, Mary.
It can genuinely change people's lives. Other people's stories can change your life. All the obituaries that I've ever shared online, there's a few hundred at least, are at the link in the bio on any of these channels. I just have them all reverse chronological order, and it's, that's inspo. That's life inspo, and it's writing inspo right there.
I love it. Well, you've been an inspiration. Thank you so much, Mary.
It was such a pleasure. We wish you all the success.
Yeah. And when we do social media, we'll tag you and, and all that kind of stuff. And so we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad to know about your podcast, and let me know if there's ever anything I can do for you too.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for streaming Wrong Way Forward, the weekly reminder that advice is usually free for a reason. We call out bad advice wherever it hides: boardrooms, break rooms, and even book clubs.
Enjoying this dumpster fire? Like, subscribe, and check back every Thursday for new episodes. Want us to roast your favorite piece of nonsense? Email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to include your contact info. We're not psychic, just judgmental. And now, back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katie and Justin.
And we're back. And this is Wrong Way Forward with Justin Joseph, Katie Montgomery, and just a huge thank you to Mary McGreevy. I learned so much from her today. And I think the conversation that she's having around death and being honest and making sure people feel, and when you really show the essence of someone rather than the accomplishments that maybe we think what society expects, it really gives us a chance to know someone, to mourn, to grieve, and to remember how important they were in our lives.
Love that. Let's give our first, just our top 2 or 3 that come to mind, loves and hates.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Loved, for me, loved dogs.
For
Loved
me,
my
I
dogs.
I love that where you laugh so much, you kind of fall over, like you laugh with your whole body. That's one of my favorite things.
Love that. Any hates? Tardiness. That's a big hate for me.
Oh, I really hate lateness too, but I would say, I really, really hate when you're I think I've talked about this a million times, but I think it's so rude when there are two people on the sidewalk and there is a process for this. And also people who have like a crowd of people or a dog and don't kind of get in a single file. They just think they have the entire sidewalk. That can really tick me off.
My last love, and I always say this, is about 5 o'clock in a pool when the sun is lazy and it's setting. And it's warm, but it's not hot. I love that time of day.
I love it when a kid, when one of my nieces or nephews on another, floor in a house, and I hear Aunt Katie just
I
yelling.
love that.
I love that.
Well, we could go on and on. Maybe we'll do this at the end of each episode. But we want to thank everybody for watching. We're over time this week. We'll see you next week on Wrong Way Forward. Bye, everybody. All right, that's a wrap on this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. Remember, the only thing worse than taking bad advice is giving it.
If you've liked what you've heard, like, subscribe, or follow us wherever you stream podcasts. And if you've got a topic or need some advice we'll probably regret giving, email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward.